Dude, actually, I was going to tell you before we get into it, I just had this phenomenal cheeseburger from this place called The Window. Mallory brought it home. It's basically good old-fashioned, just straight-up smash burger with some caramelized onions on there, the double patty, and it's so smashed and griddled that the edges are just crunchy when you bite into it, and it's got that nice soft potato bun.
Oh, that's the best.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous. And they just have a little special sauce on it. And then some really nice pickles. And then, of course, a good amount of melted, unbelievable American cheese just slathered throughout. It's just ridiculous when you bite into it.
That's the number one thing. You got to have a good amount of melted cheese on it.
Oh, the melted cheese is everything, right?
Yeah, it makes it.
Oh, yeah, dude, it was phenomenal. But anyway, yeah, so let's get into it. Welcome back for another episode of the Joe and Zack podcast. We are into episode 5, and this is part 2 of our beginnings. That's right. You may have seen us, or listened to us, I should say, in our last episode of Beginnings Part 1. We're kicking it back off, and we're picking up from right after our college careers, and then we're going to move on from not only college, but then how we met, and then where we are today, so to speak. But before we get into it, I did want to mention one thing that's kind of a throwback to the last episode, Zack, and then we'll get into some other things. Don't worry, folks. We are going to talk about the new Deadpool movie and the Marvel news, which I know Zack has a lot to tell us about that one.
Ladies and gents, I just want to say, get ready for some Marvel stuff because I've got some stuff to deliver your way.
Let's just say you're going to marvel at what we're going to bring to you.
It's going to be marvelous. It's Joe, you should be a comedian. Actually, you know what?
Don't worry. I'll be here all hour.
Even better. I think you should be a podcaster.
There you go. So yeah, we'll bring into that. We're also going to talk a little bit more about some TikTok madness, and there's probably something I'm missing. We'll get to it. Don't you worry. But I did want to start it off. So the last episode, Zack, if you recall, I was actually saying that I had a flight to catch, and I have a little news about that flight. It got a little hairy on the landing. One of the scariest, weirdest landing experiences of my life. I figured I'd talk about it real quick just because it was that kind of jarring. So I was flying into Denver, and have you ever flown into Denver, Zack?
Not currently, but it's on my list.
All right, so I was flying into Denver, and basically what happened was there was a lot of turbulence kind of getting close to Denver, but then everything seemed sort of fine, and right as it was about to touch the runway, well, it actually did touch the runway. It went down, touched the runway, and almost just kind of bounced off and then started going back up again, which has never, and I fly a ton, like I fly an insane amount. I've never seen that done. I talked to some of my friends. One is actually a pilot himself. He said he's never done that. And so it was really weird. The pilot did come on the announcements and he said something, but of course it was inaudible. You didn't even know what he said. They did a big loop back around, and then they were coming back down again. And right as we were about to get to the landing again, I'm assuming what could have only been a huge gust of wind hit the plane, and the plane completely went almost all the way sideways. The wing tilted, and because we were so close to the ground, it felt like the wing was going to touch the ground. And somehow the pilot was able to correct it and level it off and then make a safe landing. But it was crazy, dude. The whole plane twisted right before landing. I've never felt that in my life. It was pretty freaking scary. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, so it definitely sounds pretty scary. Now, for our listeners, what I'm going to say, this is what I know about Joe. Joe flies more than anybody I know besides the pilots of the airplanes. So when Joe was in New York and we did our catering stuff together, Joe was on subways as much as I was. And I just feel like he missed subways so much that when he moved to California, he turned the airplanes into his new subway system. This guy is constantly flying all the time. It tires me out listening to his schedule. I mean, kudos to you for making it happen. But I just want to say, Joe flies so much that for a rare event for this to happen to him is definitely out of the ordinary. And so, Joe, I'm glad you're safe. Your pilot did a great job. And as you know, if you've been looking at the internet, planes and airports, all kinds of crazy stuff has been happening. So hopefully everything
gets smooth. Dude. We didn't even talk about the fact that they had that huge internet outage lately and all the flights were going haywire. And now Delta's getting investigated by the federal government for, I guess, wrongful plane cancellations or some such thing. And Delta's actually the airline that I fly all the time. And I have a lot of great things to say about Delta. Honestly, their customer service is phenomenal. I've had great experiences. So it's too bad that they're under the microscope now. But yeah, it's been crazy lately with that.
It's been wild. So I'm just glad you're safe so we can obviously continue the Joe and Zack podcast for our listeners. So
Thank you,
welcome
Zach.
back.
And
You're
actually,
welcome.
Zach, I think this might be a perfect time to just quickly say thank you to our listeners. We've been getting some great feedback, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all for the shares and for the word of mouth, and especially on our last pizza episode, which we just dropped. It's been going really, really well. We're very glad that we know that what we're putting out there is reaching people and people are enjoying it and we're having fun doing it. So as long as you're enjoying listening to it, we're just going to keep on doing it.
Yeah, and thank you guys. We've had some reviews come in, not only on the Apple podcast website, but also on the Spotify podcast website. We've had a few comments and likes on our YouTube as well. So thank you to everyone for the support. Thank you for subscribing, following the podcast so you get notifications for each subsequent episode. And of course, thank you for those 5-star reviews. We really appreciate it. It really helps us out.
Yes, I also want to piggyback on that. Thank you for everyone who drops a comment, who drops a subscribe, who shares the podcast with someone. We appreciate all of you. So thank you.
Perfect, Zach. Well, I think it is a good time for us to talk about that crazy new Marvel news that we just heard. What was it, yesterday or the day before?
All right, Mr. Cummings, I'm going to ask you to take a slight back seat here because my engines are revving up right now. I know you like the Marvel movies, but I am a diehard fan. I have seen every single piece of Marvel content that has ever come out from childhood until now. It's been kind of a through line in my life. Basically, Marvel's been kind of in a downturn after Endgame and in COVID and the pandemic, and Disney's been pumping out TV shows like crazy, and not everything has been hitting since Endgame. So after Endgame, Disney and Marvel have been kind of on a downturn. It hasn't been looking so great, and everyone knows it. The internet knows it. Anyway, as you know, last week, Deadpool and Wolverine came out. I saw it opening night. Absolutely stellar movie. I've been making a series of TikToks on it. I've been having a lot of fun with that. But then all of a sudden, late Saturday night, they revealed on day 3 of San Diego Comic-Con at Hall H, the famous panel where they do all that stuff. They've announced the brand new villain, Doctor Doom, is going to be played by Robert Downey Jr. You heard that right.
That's crazy.
The same actor who played Iron Man from 2008 to 2018. My mind was blown. My mind is still blown. I think it is a brilliant move on Marvel's part. The only reason why it works is because in the recent years we've gone into the multiverse. So for those who don't know, now Marvel Comics and Marvel films have included alternate universes where there are variants of each other. It's pretty deep stuff. You have to have kept up with everything that's been happening, but I've just been so excited to see this news. Robert Downey Jr. is one of my favorite actors. I personally believe he should have been nominated for an Oscar for Civil War. That's a whole other conversation.
Dude, I actually think he should have been nominated for an Oscar for the original Iron Man, dude.
That actually would have made a lot of sense. But at that time, comic book movies were still not considered, elite enough for the Academy.
It's crazy.
But they've made some major...
I also think that the first big Marvel movie with all of the characters, Hulk and everyone else, the Avengers, I think.
2012,
yeah.
The Avengers.
I think the Avengers should have won the Oscar that year for Best Movie.
One of the first fantasy films outside of the regular Academy accepted movies to win an Oscar was The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. And that movie swept the Oscars. It won like 13 Oscars, including Best Picture. And that was groundbreaking history because that was back in 2003. And everybody thought fantasy films and sci-fi films were great, but not really Oscar worthy. And so here comes
crazy.
Return of the King.
I actually didn't even know that about that one.
Yeah. Actually, I remember Black Panther, I forget the first or the second one, I want to say the first one, was nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture or Best Screenplay. So they're making progress. In terms of the Marvel brand, the brand has been suffering. You can Google all of this. Just the fact that Robert Downey Jr., if you haven't seen Endgame, which came out 6 years ago, that's your problem.
Now, Zach, correct if I'm wrong, it's pretty safe to say that Robert Downey Jr. is probably the most famous and liked actor from the Marvel Universe, right?
Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is the Superman of the Marvel comic book film universe. So I just want to say, if you haven't seen Endgame, I'm going to spoil it for you. You can skip 15 seconds ahead right now. Robert Downey Jr. dies in that movie, sacrificing himself to save the universe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Zach. So basically he died off. So the only way for him to continue, at least in the future, in the Marvel Universe would have been to have him come back as a different character or to do prequel type stuff, right?
Or he could be in another universe playing a different character. The multiverse allows for any character to come back. So fans complain. They say there's no stakes. Other fans love the ideas. Real fans know that in the comic books, the multiverse was a normal thing for a long time. So they've made the decision, and I think this is a very important point to share here. They made the decision to bring back RDJ to play Doctor Doom in 2 movies, which is unbelievable. What happened recently was that Jonathan Majors was supposed to play Kang, and he was going to be the next big bad over the next few movies, but he had some legal trouble. That was all over the news. It hurt the Disney brand. Jonathan Majors' agent dropped him. He's no longer playing Kang. People have been wondering what's going on.
I remember hearing about that. That was some crazy stuff, actually.
Wild stuff. He was about to rise to the stratosphere, and he's out of the MCU.
What about what's his name that said he would no longer play the big muscular red guy because he was like, oh, that's all I get to play is like this muscular red guy. I don't want to do it anymore. What was his name?
Muscular red guy?
In the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, you're talking about Drax, Batista.
Yeah, didn't he say, like, I don't want to do superhero movies anymore?
Well, he's somebody who has an amazing career and complains a lot about it. So he gets flack online for that. I think he really should be grateful for the roles that he gets because actors like you and I would be so grateful and cherish any role like that from start to finish.
Yeah, that was kind of my point.
The thing I want to say is that after Deadpool and Wolverine came out last week, the movie's amazing. Go see it if you're a Marvel fan. It is a love letter to the entire Marvel film history. Not even just the MCU, but the entire Marvel film history. Bringing back RDJ as the next villain has, I think, increased Marvel's success over the next 5 years easy. It was a brilliant move on Disney and Marvel and Kevin Feige. I'm so excited to see it.
It was a total game changer. Let's just excite the fans and get people salivating kind of play, right?
People have been excited for Deadpool 3 for a while now. Now it's come out. Fans are going insane. It's already made $500 million this weekend alone, and it's only going to continue.
That's crazy.
Only going to continue in profit.
I was looking at Instagram and TikTok and trending topics, and the top trending topics are all Wolverine, Marvel, and Deadpool on all platforms right now.
It's absolutely insane. It's
even ahead of the Olympics.
Yeah, it's trending so much on the internet. It's the #1 pop culture thing. And
it's
now
crazy.
that they have RDJ coming back in, I want to say 2026 is going to be his first appearance. I think Marvel fans are excited. I think Marvel is about to do some serious cooking.
Now, Zach, since you're getting to gesticulate as an expert a lot here, am I allowed to sound really smart for a second? And
yeah, I want you to sound real. I can talk about this forever, so stop me, please.
Yeah, but let me talk real smart for a second. So for anyone that doesn't know, Dr. Doom, who Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing, his real name is Dr. Victor Von Doom.
That's right. Joe knows his history.
I'm good. And he's the leader of Tanzania, something like that.
I forget the name of his country. It's off the tip of my tongue. It's okay. It's an easy Google. Joe, I have another fact for you.
All right, somebody look it up and tell us in the comments because I know I'm close.
Let us know in the comments.
Zach, at least I didn't say Transylvania.
No, it's definitely not Transylvania. I could look it up right now, but look, I have one more
Yes, look at my teeth.
Joe Dracula is hysterical right now. So listen.
Yes.
So, yes,
I want
Joe.
to suck your blood.
Yeah, Joe's gonna suck somebody's blood. Watch out. So another fact. I have one more. Listen. We're supposed to get into the history of our lives today. I don't think it's going to happen. This might turn into another.
Zach, wait.
Okay.
If you don't mind me saying, can I ask you a question because the listeners want to know? What's the significance of the San Diego Comic-Con and why is it so big and why do huge announcements like this one tend to happen there?
San Diego Comic-Con has become the ultimate pop culture exhibit on what is about to happen, current trending in the years to come. You know, New York Comic-Con is the second largest, but New York Comic-Con is a splinter of San Diego Comic-Con. So it's just the largest sort of announcement vehicle of what's about to happen. And people spend a lot of money there.
And we should probably tell people it's not just comics. It's not just superhero type stuff. It's also fans of The Walking Dead for some reason. I guess because those came from graphic novels originally. It's also worldwide wrestling entertainment, WWE. There's a lot of signings of former and current wrestlers as well as big movie people. Also Ghostbusters, I guess, because that was a comic or a graphic novel as well. That's big there too. What other things am I missing, Zach?
You said it. Anything and everything pop culture happens at Comic-Con, whether it's San Diego or New York Comic-Con. So it's just
sci-fi, right?
Yeah, everything. Everything. Any time, any kind of TV show, any kind of actor, any kind of director, any kind of comic book, any kind of video game on display, anything you name it, it's
And
there.
then
It's like it's
cosplay, like, let's not forget cosplay. Shoot, we could do a whole
cosplay is
entire
all over the place.
episode on just cosplay alone.
We can, but
How about
I
that
want
OnlyFans girl that all she does is dress up in cosplay costumes, and she made like $54 million last year or something crazy.
there's a market for everyone. You can do it.
It's unbelievable.
Joe and I are not too far out from selling feet pics, so get ready for that, guys.
The Joe and Zack OnlyFans. Well, that's the kid show. That's for the After Dark.
Kid show, sorry, After Dark. After Dark,
late night
sorry.
After dark.
That's it, late night After Dark. I apologize. But I want to drop one more fact before we move on. I was reminded this weekend that Robert Downey Jr. before 2008 was actually approached to play Doctor Doom, and he didn't end up getting it. And then he would end up, yes, true fact, he would end up having a meeting with Jon Favreau, who was doing Iron Man, to start off the MCU.
Can we just say how awesome Favreau is, by the way, as an actor, director, writer, everything?
Favreau is the man. He's such a good artist. He has such integrity. Me, dude?
Swingers.
He's also in Deadpool and Wolverine. He plays a role, so get ready for that.
Dude. Oh, he is? Oh, man.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating that, Robert Downey Jr.
I like Don Cheadle, too, a lot, by the way, so we're talking about Marvel people.
He's excellent.
Does he make an appearance in it?
No spoilers here. No spoilers here.
Oh.
So I'm not going to spoil who's in who.
All right.
So this is clearly this is becoming the Marvel episode.
Yeah, by the way, Joe hasn't seen this movie yet, if it's not clear. And he wants to.
Right. And I'm not going to spoil anything for Joe. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody else. I hate spoilers. They piss me off so much that you would ruin somebody's joy of the discovery of a movie. But I just want to say it's fascinating that RDJ originally read for Doctor Doom, didn't get it, played Iron Man for 10 years. 6 or 7 years later, he's coming back as Doctor Doom. I love it. I love RDJ. He's an incredible actor. I'm so excited to see it. And if you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, hurry up before somebody spoils the surprises for you, because there are some incredible surprises in this movie.
And yeah, if you don't want to get spoilers, don't watch Zach's review on his TikTok, because that will spoil it. But now that we're talking about TikTok, let's give a little tip of the hat to Zach, because lately he has somehow figured out the TikTok algorithm, and in just the last week and a half, he's had, I think, 3 or 4 videos go viral and 2 super viral.
Something has really gone crazy finally on my TikTok. I have been messing with it for a while. As you remember, I was trying to do some game streaming on there, but I'm also trying to create some content. And I had a video. I was outside and there were a squadron of police helicopters flying over my block, and I had never seen anything like it before.
How many were there, Zach?
It was about 6 or 8 police helicopters flying in formation, and it was broad daylight, middle of the day, and I didn't know what was happening, and I was really stunned by it. So I took a quick 10-second video of it. I put it on TikTok, and I put the title, "What is happening in New York City right now," with the date and the time. This video right now has almost 800,000 views, almost
That's
a million
insane.
views.
That's insane.
Absolutely nuts.
Folks, I actually have seen the video, of course, and it's honestly, it's a nothing video. It's literally, it's
literally nothing. It's literally nothing. Now, I didn't post it,
but the conspiracy people just went nuts with it.
The conspiracy people ate it up. I got almost 1 million views. I got way more followers. And because of that video, now the TikTok algorithm is pushing my stuff more. So I started repurposing certain Marvel memes and putting it on my TikTok, working the algorithm with music and hashtags and all of that. And I've got 3 or 4 viral videos right now. And I just put out a new TikTok today. If anyone wants to look at my stuff, at The Real Zack Attack, ZACK. It's pretty wild what's happening. And of course, I love it because as I'm trying to get myself out there more as an actor, my face and my name, something I just put up today, I finally did a little skit with my buddy Aaron. We wrote it in 24 hours.
Shout out to Aaron, by the way. Love the guy.
Aaron,
I used to work with him in New York City as well. Not only is he a phenomenal actor, but he's a phenomenal human being.
Yeah, he's a great person. Aaron and I had a lot of fun making this thing. We just put it out tonight.
He's one of those just like super genuine guys that's always got a nice smile on his face. He's good vibes, and he's so easy to get along with. Just a real genuine human.
Aaron has a good heart. He's a good friend. I'm very happy to also collaborate. He's becoming my skit guy, because he's
And
also
he's
my
a great
sister.
actor, and he's freaking funny, dude.
He's a phenomenal actor.
He's really great with comedy. He's going to be in some hilarious 3-camera comedy. I just know it.
100%. He's so funny. And him and I share the same sentiment of trying to figure out how to become a full-time actor after all these years. He's been at it longer than I have.
Zach, let's plug Aaron's Instagram too, in case anybody wants to follow along with his acting career.
Anybody wants to follow Aaron on Instagram, it is at KapnerAD, KAPNERAD. So give him a follow, give him a shout out. He's a good dude. Check out our TikTok.
Tell him Joe and Zach sent you and give him the love.
100%. And Aaron and I just put our new skit about Deadpool and Wolverine, spoiler free, on Instagram Reels. It's also on my TikTok. We're very excited about it. We just put it up. It's already getting some traction because I've seemed to have cracked some kind of nut on TikTok, and the algorithm is now pushing my content. So I look forward to continue delving into that category and seeing how I can grow some other things. So pretty exciting stuff. It's been a lot of fun, honestly.
I love it, Zach. I love it. Well, I think we should probably get into what the listeners have been waiting for, which is the beginnings of the Joe and Zach. Well, not so far to the beginning anymore, but part 2 of the beginnings, where we start off from the end of our college careers. Now, before we go into it, though, Zach, I do have to say there's been a lot of listeners that have reached out and they said, has Zach found the VHS tape of him doing Timon and Pumbaa and going through the audience? They want to see it, Zach. Find that tape. Have you found it, Zach? We want to know.
No, I have to reach out to my sister who has.
Zach, the listeners want to see it, Zach.
I'm going to see if I can find it I know I have the VHS tape of me playing the Pharaoh and Joseph in the 2nd grade and falling on my face. But I also
we want to see that too.
I also need to find out if there is a tape of the spring musical where I played Pumbaa. I could also reach out to my chorus teacher who might have a copy. So that's a good reminder. I will reach out to her there and see if there's anything. I'll see what I can do. And if I get the tape, maybe we can throw it on the Joe and Zach podcast YouTube channel. I think that'd be the probably easiest place for people to look at it. But yeah, these tapes may or may not exist. So don't get your hopes up too much, but I will reach out and see what I can find out.
Well, Zach, you can't talk about it and not come through with it. So the listeners will be waiting with bated breaths on the edges of their seats.
I'm sorry, it was 1997. It was pre-digital age. What do you want from me? To go back in time?
No, that'd be good. That'd be good. Yeah, like,
okay.
Dude,
right,
by the way, talk about going back in time makes me think of the TV show Sliders, which wasn't really going back in time, but it was alternate universes. What was his name? Was the lead in that show?
Jerry O'Connell.
Jerry O'Connell. By the way, great guy. Kind of like one of those national treasures, if you ask me. But that TV show, when I was a kid, I thought it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, we grew up on stuff like that. Those were our early sci-fi influences.
Yeah, dude. If anyone doesn't know, check out Sliders. We won't get into it now, but go look it up. Jerry O'Connell, when he was in his kind of starting, that's probably where he really became famous, was probably from that show, actually, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. Right after college, Zach and I left off is where we finished. And I guess I'll start. So basically, when I graduated from college, it was an interesting kind of trajectory. So if you remember, I said 2 weeks before I was leaving college, I was like, what am I going to do? I've got some job offers. I had lunch with my brother, and he said, well, I'll put you up in my apartment. And that was the kicker. I was like, well, I got to do it. He's giving me a free place to stay, get my feet underneath me. But what I didn't tell you is that I literally packed my bags from my college dorm room. I got on a train in Poughkeepsie. I went to Marist College. Got on a train, took the train to New York City. Within the first 3 days that I was in New York City, I was singing on stage in Carnegie Hall. Did you know that, Zach?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
How'd you manage that? Did you sneak in the back door?
Yeah. It was one of 3 times I've actually sang on the stage in Carnegie Hall. It was my last time doing it as part of this sort of college entry thing. You had to submit some singing and you can get invited to go with a whole bunch of other colleges and college students from around the country to be as part of this huge orchestral choir plus an orchestra performance in Carnegie Hall. And it just so happened that it was actually the week after my graduation. So I packed a bag, went right to New York City, and then I ended up singing in Carnegie Hall within my first couple of days in New York City. So that was a pretty incredible experience. If I remember correctly, I think what we did was Handel's Messiah, I think. I'd have to look it up.
That sounds something like
it was either that. It was either that or it was Mozart's Requiem, and I can't remember. I've probably done both of them in Carnegie Hall, but I don't remember exactly which one it was this time. But if you don't know those songs, look them up. They're amazing. So that was incredible kind of foray into New York. And then, as I said in the last episode, there I was living in my brother's closet and coming out of the closet every single day. Believe it or not, a good old closet dweller I was. Shout out to my brother Billy, who put me up. That was pretty phenomenal. And actually kind of a funny story that goes along with that, Zach. My brother, unbeknownst to me, reached out to the New York Times reporter who wrote about theater and entertainment in the New York area and said, hey, my brother is trying to pursue acting. He just moved from college and he's living literally in my closet. This is a great sort of storyline for you about how actors struggle to make ends meet and push towards something that they love. And the reporter actually replied, and it was just a couple word reply. He just said, color me intrigued. And then my brother replied, and then the guy called me and said, hey, I'm coming over to the apartment later this afternoon. The New York Times reporter actually came to my brother's apartment, went and looked at my closet, interviewed me for like an hour and a half, talked to me all about it, asked me to keep in touch with him, but he never did a story. So it was a cool little idea that my brother had. It seemed like it was going to turn into a story, but it just never materialized. But it was kind of funny.
Well, I think it's pretty cool. It's interesting because, here you have this person who puts a seed in you and says, hey, I understand what your journey is. I actually work in the business. I work in the arts, and I'm going to talk to you about it. So it's sort of fascinating that at such a young and fresh experience, you have this journalist who wants to speak to you. So that's definitely pretty cool. I think that's, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I don't know how maybe the interview didn't go too well. That's why he didn't do it or what. I don't know. I remember thinking it went pretty well, but who knows?
Well, the thing is, it sounds like he was doing your brother a favor.
Well, he's also, let's be honest, he's probably pursuing so many different storylines, and maybe he even wrote the article and his editor was just like, nah, we're not going to do it. You never know.
Well, maybe now after this podcast has been going on, we're going to have to reach out to this person and see if the article exists. That would be a funny timepiece to look at.
That would be. That's a good idea. So yeah, that was kind of my start into New York. Maybe I'll flip it back to you there, Zach.
Just speaking of shout outs, after we talked about our childhood and our exposure to musicals, my sister Marcy, shout out Marcy, let me know that the reason I fell so much in love with West Side Story is because when she was in the 6th grade, our mother got my sister the CD from the musical. And my sister was working on the songs in choir and she was singing the songs all the time. And she made me sing the songs with her. And I was in the 3rd grade. This is what she told me.
Wow.
So from the 3rd grade, I was exposed to West Side Story because my mother got my sister the CD. She was in 6th grade choir. My sister forced me to sing the songs with her, which I think is excellent. And then eventually our mother got us the movie, probably on VHS. Was DVD out yet? No, DVD was not out yet.
No, definitely not.
Grade.
No
definitely
way.
not yet. So we had the VHS. We probably acted out the scenes. I thought that was pretty cool. So I told my sister, I guess you were definitely also a part of my exposure to West Side Story. And then I thought it a fascinating story, especially with the timing. If you remember, I talked about that when I was in the 6th grade, I thought it was a fascinating timing.
Zach, did the cat catch your tongue there? What's going on over there?
It's late on my end, so I'm trying to get my words out.
It's pretty easy, man.
I was filming my TikTok for 5 hours. Not 5 hours, but we were writing it back and forth.
How about that? Yeah, that's what people don't realize. That sometimes these short TikTok videos that are only like an hour or two, you might be spending 5-6 hours on it. Think about that.
The video is 90 seconds. We spent 3 hours outside filming it. I spent almost another 2 hours editing it and posting it, and now it's done. So it was roughly about 6 hours of actual work between the writing. So I'm just a little tired. I'm happy to be here. I love what we're doing.
I'm just teasing you, Zach. It's all good.
I know.
No, but
it's some good background.
That's some of the stuff that people don't realize is the time, the effort, the sort of dedication and just the actual pouring your heart and soul into things that goes into some of these things, like a simple TikTok video that's just for entertainment value. People don't realize it could be an 8-hour time from the concept to the writing to the shooting to the editing to the posting. It's pretty crazy when people don't realize that kind of effort goes into these things.
It can be a lot of work. Sometimes it's not, but this one was a lot of work. But once I had it all together, it was so rewarding. We're so happy with it. We think it's so funny. We're sharing it with everybody. We're just having so much fun. So the more work you have to put in, the more reward you will get out. So just a quick final
Just like the
note.
podcast, baby.
Hey, baby, After Dark, kids show, Joe. Kids show. Come on, kids show. So in terms of my journey, what I wanted to say, if you remember from Beginnings Part 1, our mother passed away when I was in between the 6th and 7th grade. So I found the timing interesting that I was already exposed because of my mom to West Side Story and then my sister kind of pushing it on me, but I loved it, obviously. And that kind of kickstarted my young journey as an actor.
Maria.
Oh, I ain't going to give you some bars. You want some bars with my brand new microphone, everybody? Quick shout out. Quick shout out to my brand new condenser mic. Maria, I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly I found how wonderful a sound can be, Maria. Thank you.
Zach, you must stop. You must stop. All the women listeners, their pants are dropping.
Great. They can find me in New York City. Hi, ladies. Nice to see you.
Wait. No, that's After Dark. Come on, kids show.
After Dark, kids show, kids show. We really got to get to after the college years. Oh my goodness, you guys. Let me do a quick tip of after my college years, and then I'll throw it real back to you because we need to catch up for time-wise. So I think after my college years, I had gotten involved in a lot of community theater. I found myself very lost. I found myself trying to audition for stuff on Backstage. I was kind of doing a lot of theater that wasn't going anywhere. I was sort of really tired of it. I had prayed for years to figure out how to audition for TV and film, and I couldn't figure out the business. So when I couldn't figure out the business, this was also the dawn of YouTube, and I had decided I'm going to start making my own films. And I had a buddy of mine, Jay Friedman, who works out in LA now on film sets, taught me everything soup to nuts on how to make a film, how to direct, write, edit, produce, sound, all kinds of stuff. And I went and I made my first project called Zack and Michael, which was a mockumentary series about two writers. And I won't go too much into it, but it was a mockumentary series about two crazy actors inspired by The Office. And that was fun. Didn't go anywhere. Good experience. And then eventually I would make something called Kyle Sands Raptor Hunter, which was another web series, sci-fi action comedy about a man who hunts raptors, played by myself. This is going back way 2007. And the reason I bring up Kyle Sands Raptor Hunter on YouTube is because Joe and I would meet on a catering job in either 2009 or 2010. I want to say 2010, late 2010.
I still remember the exact job. Do you remember where we were?
We were at the Morgan Library.
No. We were at the Met Opera House.
Was it Met Opera? Okay.
Met Opera House, second level. It was one of the cast parties, the late night cast parties.
Oh, that's right. We did a lot of those. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we met there and we talked about our acting stuff and we talked about our hustles and our struggles. And I still yet.
And basically we bonded over just each other's senses of humor, just laughing.
Much.
Essentially being at this survival catering job, whether we were bartending or passing hors d'oeuvres or whatever we were doing. Just the idea that we could still have a sense of humor and laugh and just enjoy cracking jokes and make the best of the situation. And no knock on catering work. Hey, I mean, it's good, honest
great survival
work.
Job.
It was great money on the side for us, and it was super
eventually
beneficial and helpful at the time. But, it's not what we wanted to be doing, right? We wanted to be on set. We wanted to be on stage. We wanted to be acting. So it was nice to be able to have some common ground, have a good sense of humor with Zack. He's got a great sense of humor, and to keep some lightheartedness into it when we're tired at the end of the night and we just want to go home. We can still kind of laugh and have fun with each other. Really helped make the job nicer.
Yeah, Joe and I definitely bonded on the job because sometimes it could be a lot of work or sometimes it could be really boring and energy draining. And then having the shared sense of humor makes things better, makes the time go quicker. And then eventually we bonded. We talked about some of my film stuff and he talked about his. Joe actually pushed me to make another episode of Kyle Sands Raptor Hunter. And I was heavily filmmaking at the time.
I like to push Zack as much as I can. I always try and tell him, like, come on, keep it going. Let's go.
Joe's a good pusher. It's the reason why I have a brand new microphone and my voice is buttery smooth. Thanks to Joe's pushing. Buttery smooth. Buttery buttery smooth. I got my mini, I got my mini, I got my mini little sound booth now in my apartment. It's fucking epic. I love this thing. I
Yeah,
want to
we
record
forgot
all
to
kinds of
tell
stuff.
people. We forgot to tell people that Zach's actually using a new microphone for this episode.
Brand new condenser mic. I love it. It's really exciting learning all this new technology.
It
And
has
really,
LEDs on it too, so it's like all fancy looking. It's gonna be
it
perfect
has,
for when we start
it
adding
has,
video.
when we start adding video, it's got really nice bright colors and you can just watch at it and get hypnotized. It's really, really cool. So Joe pushed me to make another episode of Raptor Hunter. He was in it. It's called Raptor Hunter Winter Edition.
I will say, at
Yeah.
the time that I pushed him to do another episode, I did not know that I was going to have a part in it. I wasn't pushing him because I wanted to act. I was pushing him because I liked it and I thought he should do more. It was Zach who was just very kind and made a role for me in it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point, Joe. I think it's important because Joe gave me this great idea. I did Kyle Sands as a one-off, and it actually had some virality at the time. I wonder if TikTok had existed back then, how it might have gone. But this was the early days of YouTube. And I couldn't figure out the business. So I said, I'm just going to make my own films and I'm going to make my own stuff. And I tried for a number of years and I learned a lot. I went a certain distance. I only got so far and I got frustrated with it. But Joe pushed me to make another episode of Kyle Sands Raptor Hunter. So I put him in it because I knew I needed a character to talk with. We had a lot of fun making it. I ended up doing a third episode, but you know how life gets in the way. Other projects get involved. Joe and I would be involved in a lot of film stuff throughout the years, cross projects, all kinds of things. And we were doing it because we couldn't get cast in the TV and film projects we wanted to be. So we were making our own things. We had to do that for a number of years. And it
was all about, I mean, the thing is, it's, you know, what we like to say in this industry is one of the craziest parts about it is that you wake up every day, you don't know if you're going to have a job. Now, that's also part of the excitement of it. But with that knowledge, what we like to do is make sure that we are constantly doing something for ourselves as much as we can, right? So whether it's we're acting in a friend's little web series, we're making our own content, we're studying, taking classes, it's all about consistently using and exercising that acting muscle to not only improve, but to network and to also put out content that'll hopefully get seen or be utilized in some other creative endeavors in the future as well.
100% everything Joe said. So I was a filmmaker from roughly the years of 2006 to about 2016. So for about 10 years, I was sort of a dedicated filmmaker and I had a lot of wins. Joe was also in a project I did called Losers, which was a sci-fi comedy TV pilot. I'm still very proud of. I have the whole thing on my Vimeo account.
Very good pilot. Very good pilot.
Very good pilot. Shout out to Carlos Del Rosario, showrunner, creator of that script. I was a producer on it. I contribute to script rewrites.
Very talented guy, Carlos is.
Carlos is very talented. We're going to bring him back in the fold someday, whether he likes it or not. We're coming for you, Silos. So get ready.
We might even get him on the pod. You never know.
It's very possible. It's very, very possible. Carlos has found himself as a cosplayer now. Since you brought up Comic-Con earlier, Carlos has a new life as a cosplayer. So what he's been doing,
that's interesting. What's his number one character to do?
His main cosplay is Rufio from Hook.
Oh yeah,
he's Filipino. He looks like the character, and I believe his Instagram is Rufio Cosplay, and you can follow him there. There might be an underscore between the two words. Now I have to message him after this podcast and let him. But he's going to be excited. He's going to be super excited. He's found so much happiness in cosplay and going to all the Comic-Cons.
Well, it's interesting, Zach. Just to reel it back in here for a sec. I had a much sort of different trajectory than you right after college. So some things were similar in the sense that I picked up a Backstage, which if people don't know, it's a magazine that shows all the different theater castings and other castings, and they also have a website now. But at the time, I would actually buy the paper and flip through it and look at all the different castings. And when I first moved to New York, I would literally go through that thing just about every single day. And I would go to as many auditions as I could. Off-Broadway, off-Broadway, some Broadway ones I would try to go to, but I wasn't in the union, so it'd be hard. I'd get turned away a lot. I was standing in line almost every day to get seen for different auditions. I ended up doing a lot of different plays and musicals off-Broadway. I did some regional musicals as well. Did a couple.
I have to ask you real fast because you mentioned Backstage magazine back when it was a paper. It's still a paper, but do you remember something called the Ross Reports?
Yes, absolutely.
So the Ross Reports was a book that listed every single talent agent and every single casting director. And it was crazy because basically part of the hunt for an actor is you have to hunt for a representative that's going to
I
submit
wonder
you
if
to
that
all these
thing still
projects.
exists. I bet you Ross Reports
I
probably exists in some form at this point.
I have a feeling the Ross Reports have gone obsolete with everything going digital, and even backstage is mostly digital now. But when you're an unrepresented actor, you have to go looking every which way to find yourself work. And it's not fun. And you book something and you're in something and you think it's the biggest thing. And it's just majorly disappointing when it's over because it's done nothing for your career except give you a little bit of experience, but it hasn't really padded your resume with something you need. So I just wanted to mention that. Throw it back to you, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the little tidbit there. But yeah, so I ended up doing tons and tons of different, not only musical theater, but straight theater, off Broadway, a lot of little black box type shows, both comedy and drama. I did hole in the wall little theaters in Williamsburg and Brooklyn. I did some theater festivals, one act play festivals, many of them. Amazing different experiences. There was actually this is a funny little story I would like to tell. I was doing two musicals at the same time at one point, and one of them was in this big musical theater festival, and I'm blanking on what it was called now.
Can
Shoot.
I just say that sounds exactly like a Joe thing to do, that you would do two musicals at the same time? That is a you thing. No other actor in their right mind does two shows at once, but Joe does it.
Yeah,
He's Joe.
I know. It was totally absurd. In fact, I had to have my understudy do one of the performances because they were at the same exact time, and there were two different parts of the city. There's nothing I could do. But one of my favorite stories about this particular instance, one of the shows, I was just one of the main cast, singer, dancer. I had a named role, but I wasn't one of the leads. The other show, I was a lead guy in. Now, one was called K&B the Musical. The other one was called Central Park the Musical. Central Park the Musical, I was a lead in. I was actually playing a bum, a father that was estranged from his family and living on the streets, and a drunk and all tattered clothing and everything. The other one, I was at K&B the Musical. I was actually playing a Navy sailor on stage and just singing and dancing. It was all happy-go-lucky. Long story short, because one night both shows were going on in the same evening, what I did was at the end of K&B the Musical, in order to get to my Central Park the Musical show where I was lead in on time and make sure I didn't miss the opening number, I actually, at the end of K&B the Musical, I completely just left. I didn't come out for curtain call, didn't do bows. I just totally just bounced, ran to the subway, got on the subway, made it, changed when I got there and got on stage and started doing the next musical. Didn't ask my director, didn't tell any of my castmates, nobody, didn't let anybody know that I was going to bounce. And the thing that's the funniest part about it, no one knew. Literally no one knew that I left.
Sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to make it happen.
Because the thing is, dude, if I had asked, of course the director was going to say, no, you can't leave the musical early. You know, like he would have been like, hell no. Because of course, every director, rightfully so, thinks that their show is the best show. And I get it. But the thing is, as an actor, I had to look out for myself. I was doing two shows at once. I was a lead in the other show. I had to go. No one was going to miss me at curtain call. And to my credit, no one did. No one even knew I left. But a couple of my friends, a few of them I'm still in touch with today. I asked them at the next show, I was like, yeah, did you know that I didn't even make it out for curtain call? They're like, what? It's pretty funny.
That's pretty wild. Listen, you do what you have to do. I want to say, like you said, every director thinks their show is the best show. I did all kinds of theater like you, Joe. I did a lot of indie theater, black box theater, random theater festivals, thinking, oh, people are going to see me. I'm going to get an agent, da, 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 da. It's all the stuff they tell you to do. Just go do something and you'll be seen or whatever. It's such a hustle because there's so many damn actors in this business that it's really hard. But I will tell you,
such a hustle. It's incredible. The amount of time you spend and you're not making any money and you're just going up there, blood, sweat, and tears. And people are paying to go see the show and you're not seeing a dime. And it's pretty incredible. It really is.
It's wild. And what I wanted to say is there are so many egos in the theater world. I mean, it is absolutely insane. Everyone is a quote unquote visionary. Everyone knows more than they know. Everyone knows more than anyone else knows. And I just got really tired of theater. I'll tell you what, honestly, I remember the last play I ever did. And I said, I'm walking away from theater because I'm tired of it. It's not worth it. It was a play called Guardians in 2008. It's a famous play. You can look it up. It was a 2-character play, and the characters did monologues throughout the play. So the characters never interacted. We rehearsed it for about a month. My co-star spent her own money on the theater rehearsals, paid for the director. It was probably the biggest theater piece I'd ever done because basically each character was doing 5-minute monologues back to back. So I came out for 5 minutes. She came out for 5 minutes. I went out for 5 minutes. She went out for 5 minutes. The whole play was just straight monologues. I played this super deep, evil, twisted character. I had so much fun with it. And it was so exciting. I thought it was the biggest thing ever. And the only money that she could afford, and no judgment on her. She had money to spend. She spent it. It was over July 4th weekend in the summer of 2008. We barely filled the house because everyone's away on vacation doing July 4th stuff. We had a couple of good audiences for the house. I just remembered pouring my heart and soul into this thing. I cared about it so much. Barely anybody saw it. Definitely not a single talent agent or manager or casting director saw it. And I poured my soul into this thing. And after 3 performances, it was done. And I just remember feeling heartbroken. And I said, I'm so done with theater. I am digging back into filmmaking. And it was actually 2009 when I started that catering job where I met you, and a year later, and did more of the web series stuff. And I really kind of stayed away from theater for a long time, except for the studio that I trained at on and off for 10 years, where it was very much scene study, theater based, Stanislavski, Meisner technique, all that kind of thing. And I loved working there. But I was very much learning how to get myself into the business. I couldn't figure it out. It's a very hard road. If you remember, Joe, you might remember this back in 2011, Michael Lane, a good friend of ours.
Michael Patrick Lane.
Michael Patrick Lane. There's a lot of shout outs going on here.
Amazing actor, by the way. If anyone doesn't know him, look him up. Phenomenal
amazing actor. Amazing actor. Amazing human. Recent dad. So applause to you, sir. Congratulations. Mike Lane hooked me up with his manager at the time called Diesel Management. Do you remember this company?
Oh, absolutely.
So for a very brief stint,
dude, they repped me for a little bit, actually.
Yeah. So for a very brief stint, this is so funny, dude. And this is all about actors having to learn the business, and also when you're younger versus when you're older and how mature you are.
And so, by the way, if anyone wants to follow Michael, hit him up on Instagram. It's M as in Mary, Patrick Lane, Lane. It's just M Patrick Lane.
M Patrick Lane. So Mike gets me a meeting. They decide to take me on for a very brief stint. They represent me freelance. This is my first ever manager. God bless them for trying. I don't blame them.
What was the name of the manager?
I want to say her name was Tara. And then he had an assistant. I forget the assistant's name, but I got a funny story about the assistant. I think it was Tara something, but I don't remember. But anyway, I had 5 auditions with this management company. Okay, this is 2011. So this is almost 15 years ago. I went on 5 auditions. All I remember, I booked nothing. I wasn't ready. All I remember was my very last audition under Diesel Management was for HBO's Boardwalk Empire.
Ooh,
and I remember being super excited.
Martin Scorsese.
Dude, are you kidding me? I have been fighting for this for years. I'm like, I'm finally going in for HBO. I'm going in for a TV show. So it's a co-star audition. So by
the way, I just had an HBO audition yesterday.
Good luck, sir. Book it. Let's get you that HBO credit.
It was actually my third HBO audition in the last 2 weeks. So they like me. I'm just hoping one of these comes through.
Looks like Joe's going to get his own show on Max eventually. Shout out to Max. Not that they need it.
Actually, maybe sometime I'll tell the story about how I actually have been offered one role on HBO and I turned it down for a number of reasons. Maybe I'll tell that story at some point.
Sometimes you got to say no. You have to know when to say no because it depends if there's something better in the works. So I had a co-star audition. For those who don't know, that's usually 5 lines or less. You're like a chess figure in the scene. You're kind of moving the story forward. And I don't remember what it was exactly about. I remember being very excited about it. And I had a very specific way about how I was going to do the audition. And I was brand new to auditioning for TV on a professional level, let me say. I was brand new to auditioning for TV on a pro level. So I go in the room, it's just me and the casting director.
But if you allow me to say, you might have been brand new, but it was like you've been there a million times because you were born for this moment, Zaggy.
I was totally born for it, and I was trusting my instincts, but my instincts had not been carved yet by the professional level.
But
So,
also, you had been acting for so many years at that point and trained so much. If anyone was ready, it was you. Let's be honest. Come on.
well, I appreciate it, but when I tell you what I did, you're going to say, "Oh my God." So
I hope not, Zack. Come on.
So listen, well, let me tell the story. So I get in the room.
Wait, are you going to tell the story here?
I'm trying to tell the story.
Oh, wait a second. Are you trying to tell the story?
I need you to interrupt me. I need you to interrupt me a few more times.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were trying to tell the story.
I'm trying to tell the story real quick. So, all right. And action. Back to one. Rolling. Here we go. So
take it back. Let's take it back to one. Take it back to one. We're not checking the gate.
Take it back to one, everybody.
We're not checking the gate.
Take it back to one. So we're not checking the gate. If any actors are listening to this right now, yes,
just shoot us.
Absolutely. You're 100%. You're 100% right.
Just shoot us. Not like Alec Baldwin though. Ooh, too soon. Ooh.
Oh, hot take. After dark. After dark show.
Ouch.
After dark. After dark, man. Kids show. Damn.
Sorry, that was insensitive. That was my bad.
We all make mistakes. We all say things. We're all human. We don't mean it for the sake of entertainment.
All right, we'll go back to your story.
So listen, I have a co-star, 5 lines or less. I go into this room thinking, this is what I'm going to do with this part. Okay. And I'm in front of this huge casting director who I think is just some casting person. I'm very naive walking into this room, super naive. I was young.
It's probably like Bernie Telsey or something.
I'd have to look it up. But it was a woman, and it was someone who'd been by Martin Scorsese's side for a long time. I forget the name. Usually you get 2 takes, right? You go and you do your first take. They let you do whatever you want to do, and they give you some direction. That's how an audition usually works in person. They're barely in person anymore thanks to COVID. Everything's self-tape now. We do it on our own time. I personally love it. It is what it is. So I go in the room. I do my scene. I feel good about it. I'm very confident with what I'm going to do for my scene. The casting director says, okay, great. So now what I'm going to have you do is blah, blah, blah. She gives me some direction. I interrupt her, Joe. I look at her and I go, really? Because I thought what I just did was pretty good.
Oh, no.
Okay. Shock moment. She looks at me like I have 3 fucking heads.
Oh, no.
She's not wrong. I am brand new to this professional level. I'm super naive. I'm also probably super nervous, so I'm coming out defensive.
That's very naive.
I was super naive. She looks at me like I'm crazy, and she goes, okay. So listen, I just want to give you a little direction, and I want you to try it my way. Is that all right? And I say, absolutely. Sure. So she gives me the direction. I do it, and she goes, great. That was awesome. Thank you so much for coming in. Very professional. I walk out thinking, all right, I did a fucking awesome job. Well, I'm pretty sure.
Meanwhile, you wrote your death certificate.
I'm pretty sure that's why.
Zack Abramowitz.
I'm pretty sure that's why Diesel Management never sent me on another audition. Okay. And then anyway,
oh my gosh,
I had my lessons to learn.
Imagine acting like that.
I fucked up so bad.
I can't even imagine.
But I just got focused on my life.
Let me get this straight. You actually said, I think what I just did was pretty darn good.
100%. I was literally like,
dude, I've heard a lot of audition horror moments. That's up there. That's like top 3 I've ever heard, I think. Holy shnikes. Man. Holy
shnikes is right. Damn.
Holy shnikes.
It would be another 6 years of zero representation for me.
It's a miracle you ever got another audition.
It's a miracle, but by the time 2017 rolled around, I had a friend who recommended me to his old manager, Dreammaker Talent. I started there, and that's where things began to change for me. So that's a good place for me to throw it back to you before I talk about 2017 further. But by the time 2017 came around, I was so hungry. There was actually a moment.
I thought you were going to throw it back to me here. You're about to go tell another story.
I am. No, because I'm setting up the chapter. Listen, Joe.
You're like, all right, I'm going to throw it back to you. Okay, listen, hold on. Let me talk for another 15 minutes.
This is an important thing I want to say. I'm setting up the chapter. I'm saying one more thing. I'm throwing it back your way. I promise you. some point in
I
2012
won't hold my breath.
at some point, I want to say it was 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I could be wrong on the year, but it was in between 2011 and 2017. I had almost quit acting. I almost quit. I almost
Oh
walked away completely
no.
because I was super depressed. I had no idea how to advance forward in my career. I didn't know what to do. And it was thanks to a TV show that Carlos de Rosario, Silos, pushed on me. Battlestar Galactica, the remake.
Rufio.
Rufio. Battlestar Galactica, BSG, So Say We All, for those who know it, the remake, the second show that came out.
Zach, I'll have you know that I've never watched a full episode of that show, but I did go to a Battlestar Galactica theme party one time, and I
That's
wore
excellent.
some weird pointy ears, and I wore my RA catering jacket buttoned to the top, and I
Wow.
printed off of my computer a golden Battlestar Galactica emblem and cut it out and put it on the chest of that jacket, and I looked like some sort of space something or other.
Well, God bless you for that. I will tell you that the show itself, the show's only 4 seasons. It keeps bouncing between platforms. It's finally back on Amazon Prime. You can watch the entire thing on Prime. BSG is my favorite show of all time.
I just
The
picture
actor-
like people going to parties together and they like hold up their fingers and they do the thing where they take the pointer and the middle finger and they spread it apart from the pinky and the ring
Well,
finger.
now you're talking
and they
Star
hold
Trek.
their hands up and they look at each other like, yes, like, may I come in? Permission
Okay,
to
so-
granted. Beam me up, Scotty. Yes, let's
I
go
gotta-
watch the
well,
show. Yes.
Well, you're talking.
Let me try
you're
some of
talking-
that Kool-Aid. Ooh, it's green. It's spicy. It looks good. It's an elixir.
I'm gonna listen, Joe. First of all,
for all you
First of
nerds
all-
out there, don't worry. I'm a total nerd. I'm just having some fun here.
Joe is a nerd. He just wants to make fun of nerds. First of all, Joe, you're talking.
Well, it
Star
takes
Trek
one to
with the
know
finger
one,
thing.
doesn't it?
Amen, brother. You're talking Star Trek. Battlestar
I
Galactica.
know I'm mixing them all together. I'm just taking the piss,
Battlestar-
as they say
So
over
listen.
there in Ireland.
Battlestar is a human drama set in space, and it's based upon.
Dude, I don't want to
Basically-
get into the whole plot line of this fucking show here.
Okay,
Can
I'm
we
just
get
gonna say it's
back
my
to what
favorite show.
We're
Listen,
trying to
okay.
do for this episode.
No,
For
listen.
fuck's sake.
Damn, dude. So it's my favorite show of all time. It saved me. There was a moment in the show, thanks to Edward James Olmos, the lead actor of the show, who made me remember what the fuck it is I do as an actor. It made me remember who I am, why I do this, why I want to do this. This fucking show saved me from the grave. This show brought me back.
Dude,
as an
hopefully
actor.
you'll get to meet him someday and tell him that.
I met him
he still
someday. We'll
alive?
talk about it. Yes, he is. I met him.
You met
and
him
we
at
can talk about it.
Comic-Con?
I met him at a Comic-Con, not the big one.
I knew you did.
So I met him in 2016. We could talk about another episode, but thanks to Eddie Olmos, I came back to acting. I
Did you tell him that?
myself. Yes, I did.
That's
You
awesome.
want me to go into it? Do
No,
we have time?
let's save it. Let's save it.
Let's save it. I'm going to put it in the notes for the next episode or a future episode to talk about as a quick story. But thanks to Eddie Olmos, I came back to acting, and then spread years later, 2017, get my first real manager. I start auditioning, and that is where I will stop and throw it back to you to continue your side of things. Sorry, folks. We have so much to talk about. We're trying to truncate it, but I leave it now to the master, JC.
Thank you. I don't even know where to go back to. So I was talking about how I was doing all these different regional theaters. I was doing a lot of auditioning. I was actually getting close to some big national tours of musicals. Because remember, my background had mostly been musical theater. And that's why I thought I was moving to New York City. I'm going to go be on Broadway. At least I'm going to try. And to this day, I would actually tell you straight up, my biggest rush and the best feeling I've ever felt probably performing was being on stage, live performing musical theater, singing in front of a live audience and everything that goes with that, the energy, the feeling, what you get back from the audience, the applause, the whole thing. I'll get back on stage someday. I will. But yeah, it's incredible. Anyway, what would happen though is I would get a lot of callbacks. And in these callbacks, I had a couple callbacks for some off-Broadway shows. If people don't know, off-Broadway just means it's a smaller theater than the big Broadway theaters, but it's still a lot of times that's almost as big a production as Broadway. And then if you call it off-Broadway, it's just smaller, tiny little black box or other small shows that don't have enough seats to be considered off-Broadway or enough funding, so to speak. But long story short, some big time musicals, big time national tour of musicals, I had callbacks for. So what that means is I went to the first audition, I sang, and maybe I did a little scene. They liked me. They said, all right, come for the callback, meaning they narrowed it down to a smaller pool of people. Well, for musicals, the callback is almost always a dance callback. Well, what kept happening to me is I would go to these dance callbacks and I would get owned by people that have like 10 years dance training. Now, I've done a lot of musical theater. I can move pretty well. I'm an okay dancer, but I'm still a white guy at the end of the day who doesn't have, specific training. So when it comes to trying to be Mr. Lightfoot, that's not my forte. Let's put it that way. And so in these dance calls, I would do okay, but I would not compared to these other guys. I would look like a fool. I remember I was up for the national tour of The Wedding Singer. Glenn Guglio was the part, and who knew, he's got this crazy hip hop dance number he does in a Jersey club in the show. Well, at the callback, they were like having us do triple barrel rolls and ridiculous stuff. I literally pulled a muscle in my leg, and I was young. I was like 24 years old, and I was in really good shape, some of the best shape of my life. Pulling a muscle was not something that is easy to do at that age and that kind of limber and that kind of physical shape I was in. But the stuff was crazy. And I wasn't ready for it. It's stuff I had never done. So all that to say, I got pretty discouraged getting all these callbacks and then getting owned in the dance call. And truthfully, I don't like dancing enough to want to go spend a lot of money and get better at dancing. It's not enjoyable for me. I want to be an actor because I love doing it. I love entertaining and I love everything about the performance. But going and spending money to learn to become a better dancer is not enjoyable to me.
There is a category for you, Joe.
Well, let me finish. I wasn't ready to do that at the time. And then, of course, all the roles where you don't have to be this phenomenal dancer, I'm now finally the age where I can play them. But at the time, I looked way too young. I couldn't play those roles. But now those baritone bass roles where you don't have to do a lot of dance, now I'm the right age. So I could go back to it. But at the time, unfortunately, you needed to be a good dancer for all the stuff that was appropriate for my age, or you had to be a tenor and I just didn't have a high enough range. Long story short, I still did a lot of regional musical theater, did a lot of off Broadway in New York City, but I was getting discouraged and my first agent was a commercial agent and started pushing me for the on-camera. Then I started doing some TV film auditioning, and that started to take off. I started to do a lot of commercial work, commercial print work, some modeling work as well. I got in a lot better shape. So basically what happened was the representation I had started pushing me on all this on-camera stuff, and that started to snowball. So all the theater stuff kind of took a back burner because I was making money and I was getting more opportunities. And so I was like, all right, well, let me pour into this. Let me focus on this. I did have some opportunities to do some cruise ships, which is great money. And I would be singing and dancing on a cruise ship or doing music reviews on a cruise ship where you sing a whole bunch of different numbers. But the problem is because I was starting to do this commercial work that was paying really great money, as well as getting some TV and film auditions, nothing had hit yet. I didn't want to go do a big cruise ship because it wasn't about the money. I want to further my career. And everything I had heard from all my reps was that doing a cruise ship, yes, it's great money. Yes, you get to travel, but it's not going to help your career. And so I didn't do any of those. And I'm glad I didn't. I wouldn't change it at this point either, looking back. But those were some opportunities to make good money and to really sing and dance and to hone that. But I didn't want to do that because I wanted to focus on the on-camera thing. And things did snowball. I did end up getting in the union. My first commercial actually was a Papa John's commercial, thrown back to our pizza love, Zach. I don't even know if you knew that.
Love that Papa John's.
I don't even know if you knew that.
Okay, baby.
And Zach and I both love the Shack. Shout out to the Shack.
Shout out Shaq. Joe, is your commercial available online somewhere for people to watch, that old Papa John's commercial?
I don't know. I don't know if I did get a copy of it way back when, but the problem is I got a copy of it on CD and I had a huge thing of all my CDs and they got stolen. And I don't know if I ever backed up a copy of it. So I don't think I have it.
I'll call somebody at Papa John's for you. Don't worry.
I know, right? But it was actually Papa John's. It was a Final Four commercial. So a lot of my friends saw me because it was all during the NCAA tournament.
Nice.
For their big pepperoni pizza. And we'll tell more stories about our actual jobs on another podcast. We don't have time to get into them all, but that one was funny. Taking tons and tons of bites of pizza. That's a whole story in itself. But yeah, then I got in the union because I got cast in a commercial for autism awareness. It was actually a PSA, and it was directed by Loss Holstrom. I don't know if you know who he is, but Academy Award-winning director, did Cider House Rules, Chocolat, like big-time director. And he directed me in that Autism Awareness PSA, and that's how I got my Screen Actors Guild card and joined the union. So that was pretty cool. And so just started doing a lot more auditioning, and things started to snowball. And then I was doing a lot of independent films and videos with Zack, and I was traveling doing pharmaceutical print ads and all those kind of things. Started doing some voiceovers, and then I finally booked a few co-stars. I'll get into more specifics at some point, but I'll finish it up with just saying booked a whole bunch of co-stars, booked some big union commercials, and did a couple of really cool film roles. And then it was time to move out to a bigger market, to ship out to LA. And then I made that big leap and jump. And it's been about 5 years. I've been in Los Angeles now. There's been a bunch of different things I've done. I won't get into all the details now because I don't know that we have enough time per se. Don't want this one episode to go on too long, Zachy. But
yeah, we're gonna wrap it up in about 10 or so.
I'll throw it back to you. I moved out to LA in beginning of 2019, and I've been rocking it on the West Coast since then.
So, Joe, I have to ask you, 5 years in LA, how is it going in the porn industry?
Well, let's just say,
way too easy, man. Way too easy.
Yeah, well, after dark, but let's just say,
that's what she said, after dark. Yeah.
I will say one thing, there's a place for the old Irish derringer. I like to call it the ivory stalactite.
Yeah, they don't call it Hollywood for nothing.
Oh, right? But
hey, pause.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zach will be here all night. Oh, yeah, that reminds me of a story that I am definitely going to have to tell in the pod. The time that I auditioned way back when, I was probably 24, 25, for a late night Cinemax, aka Skinamax TV show. Oh, wow. Yeah, that happened. No, I did not know that that's what I was going in for at the time, but I found out pretty darn.
Damn. We will add Joe Cummings Skinamax to the list of things to talk about. So to briefly wrap up the end of my journey, I actually got tired of the musical theater hustle very early on because I was doing dance classes and stuff. And I just remember being around lots of musical theater people and were performing much larger than life. And I was much more interested in real, true performances. And then I discovered that if you wanted to do a musical on Broadway, you had to go and do musicals in 10 different states, regional musicals, before Broadway would even consider you for a tiny role. And I just thought all of that was bullshit. So I gave up on that, walked away from that, focused on theater. But even through all of my hustles and struggles and everything I went through, it wouldn't be until 2017 where I got my next actual manager, Dreammaker talent, started going on TV auditions again, finally, was very excited, was very focused this time, and was actually taking classes with casting directors and learning from them. And then in the spring of 2017, I would book my very first co-star in Mr. Robot. I remember crying. It was my first ever TV job. It would air for months.
Yeah, it was so good, too.
It was
what a show that was, too.
It was amazing. I loved working on that show, and I loved watching it, getting myself ready to be on set
and
with these
something
people.
Kind of cool that we should tell the listeners, the episode that Zack booked his first co-star in is one of the coolest TV episodes of all time. What they did was they basically made the entire episode look like one continuous camera angle shot. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, they call it the one take episode. I believe it was season 3, episode 5. So it's obviously it's movie magic, but also this being on network at the time or whatever it was going to be commercial free when it was aired. Because for whatever reason, the network was okay, we're going to drop commercials for this episode specifically because the whole point of the episode is that it's one take. So it was an episode that aired on TV that was supposed to have commercials, and it didn't have commercials because it was one take. And from start to finish, it looks like one continuous camera movement. And that was the episode that I booked. And I walked in right on the title card, and it was the coolest fucking thing ever.
It was really awesome,
It
dude.
was so cool, man.
Zack looked so badass because the title cards and Zack's walking, it's this tracking shot with the camera, and he's walking right towards camera, and he looks badass and like,
oh man.
And And I'll be honest, Zach, like your look and your vibe and just you in general fits so perfectly into that Mr. Robot world. It was really awesome. It was great casting too.
Thanks, man. And I just trusted my instincts. I said, okay, if I was this character in this world, this is what I would do. So I did it. And the director, Sam Esmail, no big deal. Okay, guy is huge. He gave me zero direction. He loved what I was doing. And so I just knew that was my instinct to do that. And that was my first time ever on a really professional set, hired as a professional actor to say words on camera. And it was absolutely amazing. And then a year from booking Mr. Robot in April of 2017 to a year later in 2018, I would book 5 co-stars in a year. So all of a sudden, I went from nothing.
Which, in case anyone doesn't know, that's like a huge feat. That's pretty much unheard of.
Absolutely insane. Nobody does that. You're lucky to book 1 co-star every other year is usually the trajectory. I booked 5 in a year. And it was amazing. I was excited. And then a couple of years, COVID hit and everything changed. But I'm happy where I am now. I'm happy with my resume. I'm happy with the journey forward because this is where I belong. Joe and I have said it multiple times.
Happy with the podcast.
Yeah, happy with the podcast. We're going forward no matter what happens.
Happy with the new microphone setup.
And I have to tell you, whether Joe or I book a new show, we'll do a whole episode based on the job. We'll just talk about, like, say Joe goes and books off that HBO show and he does the part on it and it airs, whatever it is. After it airs, we'll do a whole episode where we just talk about your experience on that set and what it was like to see yourself. So we're here just to kind of continue telling our stories, discussing our lives and experiences. But it's been a long journey for both Joe and I. There's still no certainty. There's still no guarantee. But those are our beginnings. I believe we are generally.
It is our beginnings.
We're generally.
People always ask, Zach. People always ask, like, what are you up to next? What are you going to do next? And how long are you going to keep doing this? And for me, one of the things I like to look at and reflect on is, rather than thinking about all the jobs I'd missed or all the jobs I didn't get, I like to think about the journey that I've been on and how far I've come and all the amazing things I have done. And the fact that it's been an uphill climb all the way, that it's been hard and it's been grueling, but it's also been a climb where I've been doing more and more every year and getting better and better every year. And it's not like I've plateaued or gone down. I keep on getting bigger and better things and moving to bigger and better echelons and becoming a better and better actor. People always think in acting like, oh, okay, you're going to be a star overnight. And for every Mark Zuckerberg of the business world that becomes a CEO at 22 years old, there's a million other stories where someone started out in the mailroom and worked their way up over the course of a 40-year career and became the CEO. And so I like to remind people that, yeah, show business seems like this happens overnight, stars overnight, but there's also a lot of other journeyman actors, Bryan Cranston, Morgan Freeman, a lot of people that they grind and grind and grind, and they book little things here and there, and they do more and more every year, and they build a career just like you build a business career, and you're not the CEO overnight. And as long as you're doing more every year and you're building more and you're making more connections and you're getting more opportunities, I like to say I'm happy. I'm continuing. I'm doing what I love, and I'm continuing to grow and get better all the time.
Well, I have to agree with you. It is important to look at the journey and be grateful for it. And I think, Joe, like you said, a lot of people outside the business, I like to call them civilians, no offense, but we are creatives. And civilians tend to look at us like, are you sure you want to keep doing this? Nothing seems to be happening, blah, 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 backup plan, blah, 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 blah. But you and I know, Joe, that the scope of our auditions have grown. Like, we may have been auditioning for a long period of time, but myself personally, I've gone from one-word auditions up to recurring main character episode auditions for new TV shows. So we're growing in our realm of opportunity that's being presented to us because we are sticking it out, because we are not quitting, because because we're not walking away. There are casting directors who know us, who know that we're growing and getting older and becoming better actors, and they keep coming back to us. And we stay here because we know that that right part that brings us to the next level is waiting for us. And that's why we can't walk away. And we would hate ourselves if we did, because we would be dead inside. This is what we love to do. So yes, things get better. We are definitely on an up curve, and things are certainly picking up after all the strikes and all that. So Godspeed, it continues in that direction. But yeah, we've come a long way, Joe, you and I, and we still have a long way to go.
We really have. We really have. It's exciting. It's fun to think about, and it's awesome to look back and reflect, but it's also really exciting to not only have a vision for, but to forward think about what's going to happen and to put it out there in the universe And how do they say it, Zach?
Manifest it?
Yeah, to manifest it, right? The power of attraction. Not only do we see it, but we know it's going to happen. And thank you again to our listeners, because this is another opportunity for us to do what we love, which is to entertain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you guys listening. We're happy that we also have a place to sort of archive our stories for the record. And it's fascinating to us.
Till the end of time, man.
Joe and I
cemented in the zeitgeist.
Joe and I have talked about, even years down the road from now, we're successful full-time working actors. We're still going to do this podcast because we're into this shit. We're enjoying it. And then we just want to keep on doing it because it's fun and it's not that difficult to get it done. And we like showing up just the same way you guys show up for us. We appreciate that. And we're going to keep going. I feel like giving some advice, Joe. I don't know. I'm just being inspired.
Well, let's hear it, Zach. Let's leave the listeners with a little bit of advice.
I think just because of the nature of the stuff that we're talking about, it doesn't matter if you're an actor. It doesn't matter if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is you want to do. If you want to do anything in the arts, I would say to somebody that if you have a dream and it's something that you really want for yourself, I would tell you to hold on to that dream for yourself. I would tell you to not let it go. I would tell you to show up for yourself, show up for that dream, but at the same time, learn how to further advance yourself towards that dream. Just don't give up. And before you decide to give up, make sure it's for the right reasons. Make sure it's something you maybe have outgrown. But Joe and I understand what it means to live a passionate life for something that we love and we care about. And it's not a life that thanks you, 90% of the time. It's a life that says, yeah, you sure about this? Are you sure about this? But
it's a lot of rejection.
It's a lot of rejection.
You need to learn to have some pretty darn thick skin.
You got to build a thick skin. And there's a lot of doubt. And there's a lot of moments of existentialism. And
there's a lot of, I would say, highs and lows,
There are highs and lows. There's definitely highs and lows.
You can go from a period of just absolute ecstasy of happiness and high to a huge emotional swing to being completely let down. Very quickly and very easily in this industry.
For me, the word is existential. What have I done? Why am I doing this? Why did I do this to myself? Whereas I was on the top of the mountain, weeks or months earlier, and I had just came off a huge set with famous actors. You have to learn how to pivot that mentally. You have to learn how to surf those waves. It's worth it ultimately in the long run. And as I've told many people in my life, I've already given up almost a century. Hello. Sorry.
Wow. How old are you, Zach?
Dude, I'm like 175.
Are you a vampire?
I might be, but don't tell
Maybe when I start out with that Dracula thing, who knew how spot on I was?
Shit. He's on to me.
Zach will suck your blood.
Oh, someone's going to do it.
Hundreds of years.
Let me correct my statement, but please keep in the vampire stuff because that's fun. I've given almost a quarter of a century of my life to pursuing this business. And I hate to say it, but if it takes another quarter of a century, I'm giving it because there is nothing else for me. And I am not walking away.
I love it. We'll leave it with that. Thank you, Zach. Thank you to all the listeners. Remember to tune in every week to the Joe and Zach podcast. We'll see you soon. Boom, chick.
Beautiful stuff.
Good stuff, Zachy.
Good shit, man.
Thanks for bringing it, as always.